House in Baltimore Caps, and of course, Game 5 is on Friday night. That now exists with a 1-1 start. But this guy's watching baseball. He's watching a little hockey, certainly watching some basketball out in his part of the world where the Portland Trail Blazers are trying to blaze a trail. I'll be blazing a trail into Portland next month as I make my Northwest swing to check out U2 and have some fun on Mother's Day weekend. He is Bizball Maury out on Twitter. He's one of our defending champions, as well as are you lead or are you rhythm guitar? Do you play the bass? I don't know. Shoot the Thrill is the AC/DC cover band. By the way, Maury Brown, they played Shoot the Thrill between sets, between Poison and Def Leppard, and there's nothing quite like going to that kind of classic rock show where they play a lot of AC/DC between acts, you know?
Well, that's awesome. Well, I get to do the Malcolm part, which is, a lot of fun. I also get to herd the cats with the band. I'm kind of like the band, not the band manager, band organizer, but no, I work with a guy that I've known for, 30 years, that he can completely nail Angus. So while I could have done it, it was much better to do it. Plus, he looks more like him. So, yeah, I get to do the fun part. Get to do Malcolm, which is kind of like the unsung, maybe most underrated guitar player of all time for me. So, yeah, man, it's a great time.
Well, and it's a good time for baseball. And, I bring you on often. You're one of my favorite dudes because we talk a lot of rock and roll, and you're in a rock and roll band. And at some point, we're going to probably drink a mass quantity of adult refreshments in the middle of May when we get together out in Portland with Rob Nyer, my buddy Bernard McKinney, who are also, to our audience here, Maury, and you're sort of, into the tent now on Facebook and stuff. I get all these friends out in Portland, and, I'm Facebook friends with you and Twitter friends with you, and it was very, very disturbing, this whole grasshopper incident that you had out in Seattle. I mean, this has become a massive story. Like, the first time I knew about the grasshoppers was you eating them last week, and I don't think a day has gone by where the grasshopper phenomenon in Seattle, it's real, Maury, and you participated.
Yeah, it's real. It's amazing. It's like, at first you would go, well, maybe it was a dare thing. But I will say this, Nestor. So once you get past the fact that you're eating
it's
an
a grasshopper, right? Exactly.
Yeah, once you get past it's a grasshopper, they go really well with probably beer and tequila. Very salty, very spicy. It's got a chili lime salt that they use on it. So I mean, if you've done tequila shots, the salt, the lime, the tequila, it would go well with that. It'd be like eating peanuts.
Dude, no can do. I mean, I did the cow nuts out in Denver 20 years ago, and I'm still sort of shaken by that whole with Rocky Mountain oysters, right? That's what they call them. What do they call these things? Do they call them just fried grasshopper? I mean, what are they? Are they fried? Are they baked?
I
what
can't pronounce it. It's like chiepo.
La cucaracha.
I'll completely screw it up.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's a Mexican delicacy. It's like in the Oaxaca area of Mexico. Is kind of, it's a regional thing. And they threw them on the menu, not thinking it was going to do, spectacularly well. Well, they sold them out opening day. They sold them out the second night. They had to do an emergency order of them to get them in. On opening day, they sold 310 orders or 13 pounds of these things. And they come in a little tiny cup for like $4.
Well, I mean, if anybody wants to see Maury eat these, and this is the beauty of the internet these days, is you can be in any time zone anywhere in the world, and, that little video of you eating them on opening day in Seattle lives, and I know it's there, and, what do you tell the kids, Maury? I mean, at this point, I mean, I remember when I went to games when it was just hot dogs, right, and like peanuts. And then they brought nachos in from Texas. I remember Brooks Robinson used to eat those down in Arlington, and he would brag on them. Next thing you know, I remember when they brought soft pretzels. I mean, that was a delicacy at that point. And then this whole Gucci era of baseball where, sushi is widely served. And it really is amazing around opening day. Every team releases its gastronomic menu. Everything I'm seeing coming out of Atlanta in the new ballpark is this chop house and the beer coolers and all that. I mean, baseball has really gone sort of esoteric on the. Again, I'm a hot dog guy. Maybe a little sausage and peppers, something like that. And I remember used to get some clam chowder in Boston, some regional stuff. But it's fully on when they're serving insects at ball games, Maury. It's disturbing.
Well, it is. And you know what else, though? And this is great stuff to talk about, Nestor, because it really has changed. We're now, if I go, the other thing that I always have when I go see the Mariners, and I do the same thing when I'm in San Francisco and go see the Giants. is I got to have garlic fries.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
that's another thing. And it really has. I mean, it's turned into a pretty big deal. And it is, I mean, the other thing that they had, and this surprises me to no end, there was a huge line for grilled cheese sandwiches. Grilled cheese sandwiches, Nestor. And,
That's pauper food. That's what we ate when we didn't have a hot dog, right?
Right. But it is that, so I always joke. I mean, there's that scene in Field of Dreams where, they walk up and they're at Fenway and, what do you want to have? Oh, a hot dog and a beer, right? A dog and a beer. And that's always the thing, right? A dog and a beer. And for me, I still have to have that. The tradition lives, but there's an awful lot of culinary stuff out there right now. Some of it's wild. I mean, certainly this thing with the grasshoppers is a bunch of people going, hey, let's get drunk and try them. And I don't know if I might try them again. I don't know if I'm going to do it, every time I go to the ballpark. But I think that's kind of the thing. Everybody will get it out of their system, and and it's something for everybody to talk about, and good for the Mariners that, they're not exactly ripping up the standings right now, but they got something to talk about otherwise.
Maury Brown covers the business of baseball, and part of the business of baseball, I guess, are these concessionary delights that we hear about to start the season where, a lot of it is sort of man versus food now, right? We've got a burger that's got 4 links on it. We've got bigger and better and craft beers and specialty this and local that. And, I guess it's sort of all a hook, but the bottom line is, Maury, I went to 30 ballparks in 30 nights. I don't know that I ate it more than a handful because if I was in Seattle before the game, there's a lot of places I could go at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and get an amazing burger, an amazing salad, or amazing sushi, or amazing Tom Douglas desserts or whatever, and then go to the ballpark and see baseball. So I'm not one of those guys. When I think of the best meals I've ever had in my life, they've never, ever, 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 ever come from an arena or a stadium, ever, anywhere.
Mm-hmm. No, and I'd agree, man. The one time that I would say that there was some really good food, I remember, I guess it would have been I can't even remember, 2008? Whenever the All-Star game was in Anaheim.
Okay.
I went there, and I got taken around by the concessionaire, I think it was Aramark, and they had brought in special dishes from each of the clubs that Aramark had.
Oh, so we had a little crab cake,
Yeah.
Kansas City had a rib or something, right? All right.
Man, the stuff from Kansas City was ridiculous.
Of course.
And that was about the only thing that was really good. But you mentioned it is that way. I mean, but part of it is now, and this is something that I find really interesting that has started to happen. So it used to be, hey, we got a lot of seats, and that's it. And then it's a lot of seats, and then we have suites. And now what's happened is there's a lot of clubs that are either taking out seats or they're finding places to put these patios in. And the patios are really where everybody just kind of hangs out and BS's and eats a lot of food and drinks a lot of drink. And, oh, by the way, there's a baseball game going on. And now I know that the purists out there are like, that's just ridiculous. You're paying good money to go watch the game. But you are at the game. You turn around, you watch it for a little bit. But there's more and more of these patio areas, and they can cram so many people into them. But that's where people are going. They're grabbing their food, they're hanging out, and it becomes a social experience. And that's one of the things that baseball, of course, is trying to fight right now is, there's a great article by Jeff Passan about how there's pace of play for television, and when you're at the game, you never think about that stuff. You're just like, hey, I'm hanging out with friends. I'm at a great, it's a great social event. I'm watching a great game. I'm not really too concerned about time. But for television, they're battling that sort of thing. So, that's how it's really changed. I think that there's so many distractions now. You got kiddie play areas, you've got everything else that, the game, I won't say it becomes secondary, but it's certainly secondary for some.
Well, there's no doubt about that. And, I know you attended opening day in Seattle. My observation about opening day in Baltimore, it's a bunch of 50-year-old drunks who used to be 25-year-old drunks at the Preakness that now opening day is a drinking day. It is a St. Patrick's Day. It's what New Year's Eve used to be that isn't anymore because no one goes, only amateurs go out and get hammered on New Year's Eve. But professionals, they do it on St. Patrick's Day and on opening day, I think.
Yeah, and well, I'll tell you what, and maybe it's not just 50 years. Maybe it's 50-year-olds for the Orioles. But, man, I wrote an article last year, and this year it didn't change. There was an article I did called Welcome to Club Safeco, and it was a bunch of 20 and 30-somethings. Now, I don't know where they get their money because and I know that beer at the ballpark is not cheap. I mean, when you're paying $13 for like a PBR, like a 16-ounce PBR, and you're drinking those things all day long, I mean, you're either raiding mom and dad's, wallet and their purse, or, you're doing pretty well.
Well, I always say this, Maury, and I mean this across the board because I spent a lot more money going to concerts last year than I did going to games, and I go to a lot of games. I'm in Toronto all week with the Caps and the Maple Leafs. I was last week, chasing the Wizards and the Caps and the Orioles around. So I mean, I'm week after week doing this, but I am astonished at how easy it is, and it's kind of like the movie theater, right? That you spend $7.25 on Raisinets, where in the real world you wouldn't spend more than 99 cents. And we really sort of do suspend our wallets when we're at these events, no matter the event, even minor league sports. I mean, minor league games and, Def Leppard concerts where you go up and you give somebody a 20 for a beer and they give you back $5 and hand you a tall boy, and you're like, did I just spend $15 on 24 ounces of beer? Yeah, and feel good about it because it was only $7.50 a beer, right? When you look at it like 12 ounces against 24 ounces and you start to do the math on it, I know it's going to be a lot worse in Canada, but it really is kind of amazing how quickly we'll hand over a $20 bill to get a beer at a sporting event where you would never think about doing that at a restaurant, not even a nice restaurant.
No, but what it is, Nestor, it's because you're at the venue. And if you're there, you're willing, they will push the limits. And look, the idea that you could get to $20 a beer is not that far away. And as depressing as that may sound for us outside of it, when you're at the game, it's just like, yeah, man, I got to have a beer. You got that thing going where it's part of the event. And certainly the concessionaires and the club owners understand this. And so
it's a limited time offer, right? I mean, like I saw it at Def Leppard the other night, Maury. Like I'm thinking to myself, it's $13 and whatever, $9.75 for a 16-ounce can when you walk in there. Across the street, it's $4. You know what I mean? Like Everybody's sort of pre-gaming, right? I mean, like we all sort of know the minute we get the ticket scanned at this point or our mobile scanned, we're about to start to bleed if we get thirsty or hungry, right? And we also know that like. The beer might be warm, it might be cold. Now, I always find somebody with a tub of ice, and I have friends here in Baltimore, but, that's another issue. But the concession part of this, as much as they try, they never really get it perfect, do they? I mean, nobody ever feels good about it at a stadium or an arena, ever.
Well, it's like parking, Nestor. And I had heard about stuff, and I've seen it at back east, right, especially around Boston, where you're in a neighborhood park, and or in Wrigleyville, and there was parking about a block and a half away from Safeco that was $65, and I just went, "Who does this?"
That's American money, not Canadian, right? That's American.
That is America, and like when I posted it to Twitter, I said, "Welcome to capitalism." It really is, what the market will bear. And sports seems to drive that. I think the bad thing about this, and the concert thing really ties into this. I did a story about this for Forbes, that it's becoming to where the average American, it used to be you could go and you could be a bleacher bum and you could go to a game for $5 and you could go and you could get away from going to a game for $25 or something. And even if I account for inflation, you could never do that now. It's just one of those things to where it has become, I won't say elitist, but it is becoming one of those things to where it's becoming very hard for the average person to go attend sporting events. Basketball is expensive. Hockey is really expensive. The NFL is ridiculous. So baseball goes, hey, we're still reasonable compared to the others. We're cheap. Well, that's a relative term, right? I mean, if you go to a game, you're going to drop. If you bring the family, you're going to drop $400. By the time you go, you buy, some souvenirs, you buy food for everybody, you pay for parking, you pay for your tickets. You're gonna drop $400. There's no doubt in my mind that you can't do that. And it's just like, instead of going on vacation someplace, it's becoming, that's what's happening now. The sporting event is my vacation-esque destination to do with the family once or twice a year.
Disposable income. He is Maury Brown. He covers the business of sports at Forbes as well as Bizball Maury out on Twitter. And you can read his work and follow him. No one's more in tune with what's going on in the baseball side of things. And he was eating grasshoppers in Seattle the other day, which I thought was good. He'll be having some beverages with me next month. And now we're on to the actual season, right? And for all of the pundits and all the off season and what might go right, what might go wrong, Dude, I'm an Orioles fan. It's gotten off to a better start for the Orioles than any other team in Major League Baseball at this point. And yet, Tillman's not right. Britton's going on the DL. Adam Jones is running into walls. Meanwhile, Donaldson can't stay in the lineup in Toronto. Red Sox have had the flu and half their rotation out. Sanchez pulls up lame for the Yankees. The next kid, the next rage. It's never easy, right? It's always navigating this thing for the managers and the general managers. We're not even out of April yet, and it's already a little bit upside down, right?
Yeah, and it always is. I mean, this is the thing that no one can really factor in. The day that somebody in the sabermetrics community can factor in what goes on and really be able to determine injuries, I think that's a big day in the history of statistics. But we won't. It's completely random, of course, and it is one of those things that all sports have to deal with. But baseball, given the rigors of the season and how long it is, it's good and bad, right? I mean, the bad thing is you go, crap, we need everybody, we paid this money for these players. We want them there the whole time. The good thing is if you lose a player early on, you can have them back and then some for the home stretch after the All-Star break. So if you're going to have somebody hurt, you'd probably rather have them hurt now and get it out of the way. If it's certainly if it isn't season ending, if it's Tommy John, then even then it is one of those things where you might not pop back, but it is that way, and that's what the interesting thing about baseball is, right? There's always that question: when do we start to panic? How long? When you're in Toronto, how long will it be before everybody starts to have to panic in Toronto? And my thing about it is you guys they're not even close yet. They're not even close to having to panic yet. End of May, June, maybe.
Dude, when it was 11-1 on Sunday afternoon, I tweeted out, by the time I get to Toronto, there might be a new manager there. And, I don't know what the tolerance is. And obviously Shapiro came in before the manager did. And, they've had all sorts of issues there and difficult off seasons and difficult decisions to be made there with Encarnacion amongst others. And, Morales had a big one on Saturday as well. But, 2-10 kind of speaks for itself. That's sort of unacceptable. I mean, other than them, there's really not any massive story. I mean, the Cardinals have gotten off to an awful start too, but nobody's been great. Nobody's been awful. It's been a weird couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, it has been. I mean, that has been, I think, the thing that's been most interesting. The Astros are cruising along, and it's really weird. I mean, you mentioned this, how seasons can flip. And you go, there hasn't been a heck of a lot of change around some of them. The Astros last year were weird to me. I thought for sure last year they were going to run ramshot and do really well. And, of course, they didn't. And then it's you look at how Toronto was doing last season, and you could really sit there and go, gosh, they're really going to start off that bad. And the Mariners, who, of course, completely flipped their roster around, looked really good on paper, and they're anything but. That's the beauty of sports, right? That's why we don't play games on paper. As much as I am all for analytics and as much as I am for scouting, you still can't figure it out. But, it's very early. I mean, the thing that I love about it is that there's always something, whether it's Bryce Harper hitting a walk-off, basically down to last strikes or others, or looking at how Baltimore's doing. I mean, there are storylines even this early in the season. And that's going on with, the Stanley Cup playoffs going on, which have been really interesting, and the NBA playoffs are going on. And so to me, this is I'm happiest right now. Sure, I love football and everything, but it's hey, the weather's starting to warm up, and we're starting to get into it a little bit more. So, it's a good time.
You're in Portland, dude. They draw into the playoffs, but are they really in the playoffs at all playing Golden State?
No, I mean, they're not. I mean, the thing about the game one is they were tied into the third, and it was just nope, there goes the Warriors. They go on their fourth quarter tear, and
Cleveland left the door open in game one too. You know what I mean? It was almost like Golden State and Cleveland teased everybody just a little bit in game one, and kind of in the end took it away, like they always do, right?
Well, there's been, it's not like the games haven't been clean. I mean, that Cleveland game, you get by with a squeaker, and certainly the end of the Utah Clippers game was unbelievable. So, I mean, that's the thing. The thing that always gets me about the NBA, and to maybe a little lesser extent the NHL, is, man, playoffs are long. I mean, you really got to be invested, and that's, I think, the worst thing about it. I mean, my kid was going, gosh, they're in the playoffs. When do they end? In June or something? I'm pretty much, I mean, it goes on for a while, and
that's how the beards get that long and ugly, Maury.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Hey, man, it's always great visiting with you. We're going to send everybody out to find you at Bizball Maury out on Twitter, as well as his fantastic AC/DC cover band, Shoot the Thrill. And we talk a little rock and roll, a little baseball, and eating grasshoppers. That got you on the show today, Maury. That was the lead story. You're proud of yourself, aren't you?
Well, that is. If that's, the most difficult story I got to do, I'm like chasing people doing a huge NASCAR story for next week. Here I am talking grasshoppers. Life is good, Nestor.
Dude,
I
eat most everything. I'm not a picky eater. I can eat but I'm just not going to do the insects. I was at a restaurant in Germany where like insects were on the buffet if you wanted to add them. I kind of stayed with like the chicken and the shrimp for me.
There you go, man. There you go. I look forward to seeing you out here, man. They're not too far away.
All right. No chocolate-covered ants on my trip out there or anything
like that. No chocolate-covered ants. It'll be right next to my birthday, so it'll be, I guess we'll do liquid dinner.
Don't sneak me any funny Raisinets.
No funny Raisinets.
But the gummy bears. Bring on the gummy bears, Maury. I'm out west. We'll see you soon, man.
Well, you got to be careful of the gummy bears up here. It's a legal state up here, Nestor. So
one at a time. One at a time and hydrate. We'll see you soon. Go. He is Maury Brown. He is Bizball Maury, and our pal out on Twitter as well as at Forbes and Rip City Radio. He's getting it done out in Portland, Oregon. We love talking baseball with him, but he ate grasshoppers, and I thought, I'm going to talk to that dude, figure out what's going on out there. We got a long week. I'm going to be in Toronto all week for Caps and the Maple Leafs, and obviously the Blue Jays are playing the Red Sox. Orioles are gallivanting around with the Cincinnati Reds because they have that huge history there that dates back to Brooks Robinson and the Manny Machado going to maybe we could do that, reenact that thing. Manny Machado's been doing a lot of that lately, including in the World Baseball Classic. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault all week long, covering hockey, basketball, the NFL draft's a week and a half out. The schedule's coming out later on in the week. We got a lot of things going on, including our road trip to London, where we have $100 off for that. Green Bay, Minnesota, Nashville, and Oakland. We're going to be doing those trips next week. We hope to get you aboard with us. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. And Planet of Triumphs is also a place to get some great inspiration for the summer if you're not eating grasshoppers. Last but never least, breaking news, including bad news on Zach Britton, comes to you first on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home. I'll be back by Thursday and banging around this weekend for Game 5 in D.C. The Orioles headed home this weekend as well. So we have plenty of things going on around here. I'm easy to find. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.